Alright, everybody, hello once again, and welcome to our 5th episode of the Best Review Spot Live. Today we're talking about Brian Davis's Dragons of Starlight book series. It's a young adult book series, and Masked Builder here is joining me as always, and I'm Keegan Pulse. And this series actually was just completed in July, so Masked Builder is going to give you a rundown of which books make up this series.
So for Brian Davis wrote a quartet of books for this series. He wrote Starlight as the first one, Warriors the second, Diviner, and then Liberator, with Liberator being the most recent in finishing the story.
So basically, the overview of the plot for these books is there's a group of humans from a planet that are trying to liberate slaves that are being held by dragons on another planet, and they accomplish transit through portals to go rescue the human slaves. And so that's basically the
That's
plot.
the plot without any spoilers.
Without any spoilers, yes. We can go into much more detail, but basically humans trying to free humans from slavery by dragons.
As with all of Brian Davis's books, it's about dragons. He's figured out in almost every single one of his series to figure out how to work dragons or some sort of intermixed breed in, and it's really good.
And each set of stories has different dragons. They're not all the same.
Yeah, correct.
They're not all the same color. They're not all the same traits.
They all
But
have
he
different
does carry over.
personalities.
He does carry over a few traits like ice breathing. And as with all of his books as well, each character seems real, even the most mysterious. There are some pretty mysterious characters in this one, don't you think?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, Cassabri, the Starlighter. We don't ever really find out much about her.
Oh, quite true, quite true. Well, I don't want to give any spoilers. We
Yeah.
really only see her in the last book.
Yeah.
So we never have time to learn her character, what she does, what she's like, anything.
Nope.
She's just there. That's about it with her.
Yep, and then the main characters from Major 4, which is the human planet, Jason is just so realistic. I mean, he's got, and each trait, that some of the characters have other traits like similar to Starlighters, because Starlighters are people with special prophetic storytelling kind of abilities. There's other ones that also have that, and he weaves it in with enough reality that you get the picture and it makes sense. And then this story, there's tons of characters, really.
Yes, there are quite a few.
And each character has its own storyline, his or her own storyline, which follows their different activities and directions. But what do you think? Were they hard to keep track of or not? Because I know some people that might be an issue.
Well, my mom doesn't like the multiple storylines because it makes it hard for her to keep track of, but I like it because you get a lot more in one book.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. It's not hard how he does it. He pretty much, for the most part, breaks it up chapter by chapter. He'll follow one person one chapter and then switch over to somebody else the next
Yeah,
chapter.
and in the first couple of pages, sometimes he'll do brief recaps of what happened. They're thinking, this just happened and we need to go do this now.
Yeah. So, with the plot that we have here, there's really nothing bad in these books, especially they are Christian. He is a Christian author. So there is some violence with pretty much any fantasy book you're going to pick up. There's fighting dragons, there's killing dragons, there's fire breathing, and all sorts of stuff like that. But this one also has some potential. This plot, slavery by dragons, creates the potential for some disturbing content, and there is some that may disturb certain readers.
Yeah, as with dragons, there's always the fire breathing, so there are a few burning scenes in the books. There are cattle children in the cattle camp, which basically they make them work hard without giving them much food at all to weed out the weak ones. And then there was basically amounts to a grist mill for people.
Yep. So basically with the cattle children, I'd like to elaborate on that a little more if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So basically they live like cattle, that's why they're called the cattle children. They have very few clothing, very little food. They have to fight each other for the food, basically. So, I mean, and the pictures, the description, the amount of description, it's not like overly in-your-face kind of graphic, but it's just sad to think and imagine what these kids would go through. And that's part of the realism that we've been talking about.
He's found the perfect level between just sad enough and not overly gruesome.
Yep, exactly. Especially with that meat grinder. So in conclusion, we just want to say that fantasy fans, you'll love this.
Yes, he's created a great mix of sci-fi and historical. They're just discovering gunpowder, but they still use swords.
Yep, and they also have interesting things like photo guns, which are similar to laser guns, but not quite, and high-tech messenger tubes that are genetically locked and stuff. And genetically locks come into play a lot, genetic locks.
Yes, this is one of those things I would love to see be made into a movie, so I can see what Brian Davis has in mind when he's reading this,
Definitely.
creating this.
And as we've come to expect from Brian Davis, we have a unique story, we have dragons, we have the beautiful prose that he's known for. Some of the things his characters say are they're just amazing. And I mean...
Very elegant.
Yep, exactly. So it's time for the ever-important rating. Me personally, I'm a huge fan of these books. I'm a huge fan of pretty much... The only book series that I didn't like as much by Brian Davis was the Echoes from the Edge series. But these, I could not stop reading these. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 is what I'm trying to say here.
I agree with Keegan, but I only found out about Brian Davis from Keegan when we moved here a couple years ago. So I'm definitely giving this a 5 too.
Yep, and of course with these, the main character Jason Masters has an older brother named Adrian, and his brother Adrian has a friend named Marcel. And Brian Davis has taken these two characters and made a second series, a trilogy called the Tales of Starlight series. So if you check these out and you enjoy these, you might want to check out the Tales of Starlight series as well. It's still in progress. 2 books are out, and the final book is due out spring of 2013. But as we said before, Dragons of Starlight is finished, so if you don't like getting into series that are half finished, then here you go.
Which I completely agree, which is why the Hobbit movies annoy me.
Yep.
With being 3 now.
So thank you for watching, and like what he mentioned, The Hobbit, we're going to bring you a Hobbit movie and movie review in December, live, and we'll also have another live review coming up before that for the Battle of Helm's Deep Lego set, if all goes according to plan. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on the Best Review Spot Live.
7:38.